Councilman Guy.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing. This evening, our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, I come to you, thank you for this day, Lord. I come thanking you for watching over each and every one of our children during this summer break. And Lord, I come thanking you and asking you to continue to watch over them as they start their school year here in Chester County and around this nation. We ask that you continue to watch over the citizens of Chester County, continue to watch over each and every one of Chester County's employees. We ask that you continue to watch over each and every member of this council. Then, Lord, we ask that you watch over us as we go home tonight, each and every one of the citizens that came to our meeting tonight. We ask that you watch over them as they go home and watch over their families. These and all of the things I ask in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we'll begin with the approval of minutes from the July 15th, 2024 council meeting. Is there a motion?
I want to make that motion to approve the minutes on July the 15th, 2024.
A second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Killian and a second by Councilwoman Mosley. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, next we have citizens' comments. We have 5 people signed up to speak tonight. As I call your name, you can come forward. I'll ask that you repeat your name and your mailing address, and we'll remind you that this is our time to listen to you. So we will not be responding, but we'll be listening to what you have to say. If it's an item that we'll have on our agenda later, we could have a question and may have some interaction then, or we'll have a moment at the very end for council comments. So with that, we'll begin with Bonnie Vicari. She'll come forward.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Vicari. I live at 143 York Street in Chester, South Carolina. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I first want to thank you for always doing such a great job for our county. I appreciate the time that everybody puts in to make this a better place to live. And today I'm here in support of the Chester County Animal Control, and I wanted to let you know that I'm a volunteer there, as well as my friends and neighbors behind me. And we wanted to share with you that we appreciate the resources that you have given us so far in helping us help the purest of heart, the cats and the dogs and the strays, the injured animals of Chester County. And I cannot say how proud I am to be part of the volunteer network of the organization. The people that, like Jesse and Stacy and Laura and many others, and the inmates that help with the dogs that are and the cats that are at the shelter, we greatly appreciate it. We also want to ask for your support in future funding for the new kennels that are going to be built. It is an exhaustive task, we understand, but we know that it is for the best of the animals that we have in our county. This is one of the whelping mamas. I've become the whelping mama for the kennel. This is Mama Wrigley and 4 of her beagle pups. We have posters of other dogs here that you have saved. They are the purest of heart. So thank you so much for what you do for them, and please support the organization in the future funding. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Muddy Vicari.
Hello, I'm Mud. I live on Academy Street. I've been volunteering for the shelter for just over a year, and I've had over 100 fosters come through my house, which has been a really rewarding experience. And then we've gotten a bunch out to rescue as well, which is great. It's funny because I think that like a lot of people sometimes overlook animal control and the importance to the community that it has, but this leadership that we have, Jesse is the director and Stacy is the new supervisor, Laura handling as much as she does on a daily basis. Everyone's a really good team. And I'm really excited about the new shelter because I'm excited to have a place that we can feel proud of when we walk people through the shelter. Right now we barely walk anyone through, but it's going to be a nicer facility, and I'm really excited to like be able to show people, and I feel like that'll help contribute to more adoptions there. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the support from you guys to the new shelter and all the animals in the county. I've been at the shelter where the phone doesn't stop ringing like the entire day because the community is like consistently asking for help from them, and everyone's doing the best that they can. So with the resources that they have, so I'm just excited to see what the future holds and say thank you for what you guys have allocated to them so far. And that's it.
Thank you. All right, so next we have Lisa Bridgewater.
Hello, I'm Lisa Bridgewater of 153 York Street in Chester. And I just wanted to say that when I first moved here, I was very disheartened by the way animals were being treated here. I saw so many strays, so many unwanted animals. And I've seen such a change with the new people in charge of the animal control in the shelter. And I think they're doing such a wonderful job. I think often of a quote by Gandhi who said, "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way the animals are treated." And I think it makes a big difference to the county. When people come to the county and if they see strays and wandering dogs, it's a very bad picture. And I think for the progress of the county, it's really important to continue to support animal control and to really support the building of the new shelter. And that's all I have to say, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Roxanne James.
Good afternoon. My name is Roxanne James. I live at 3007 Steel Village Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina, 29730. I am a Chester County resident. As you can tell, I've been coming to these meetings for 10 years. It's been a while, but I am so glad we're at this point with Rodman. We now have a plan, we now have the money, and we're ready to go forward. But I got a couple of concessions I want to run by you. Your Public Works Director and I have been in meetings for 10 years now. We've seen many things. We've seen a $40,000 2014 capital project sales tax. We could have built a concession stand for $40,000 in 2017. In 2020, I believe the price was $1.165 million. The Capital Project Sales Tax Committee granted us that, and we added in a buffer. It's nothing today, nothing. That plan that Carlisle Roddy invented back in the day with Chester County citizens is on display at McDonald's in Richburg if you want to review it. It's also in the Country Omelet. We're proud of that plan back in the day, but I'm a realist. We're in 2024 now. So I haven't seen the current plan. I even went on your packet, and you don't have a picture of the plan either, unless I get a packet that's different from yours. But what I did get made me question. August 12th, by Alliance Consulting Engineers to Mr. Hester, Administrator. We have a bidder. We've selected a bidder. Sounds like a good company, comes highly recommended. $3.4 million. And there's some add-ons that I don't understand. I'm not in the engineering company. But a couple of things comes to mind. I've always promoted Chester first. We had a contractor from the local area. Their bid came in third. It's only basically $500,000 off of $3.5 million. I understand you have rules and there's a percentage. I understand. But it's disappointing we don't select Chester first. What I don't understand is these alternate bids. I mean, I can understand the basic, but I don't understand all those add-ons. Second point I want to make is I'm reading the Chester County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board minutes of August the 12th, 2024.
Ms. Roxanne, if you'll finish up. your time.
If you will go down to the cost, 5.187. Now, I went to school at Louisville High School, and I learned my math there, but 3.3 is different from 5.1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Forrest Baker.
Chairman, council members, and administrator. I'm Forrest Baker, the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Many of my board members are here today, and there's another one. And the board is very much in support of the plan that Mr. Hester and Mr. Studemeyer will be presenting today. The project has been in works for over 10 years. About 3 years ago, I joined the advisory board, and shortly after, we lost our director. Nonetheless, we approved one of the two designs that was presented to us for almost $5.9 million near the end of 2022. Shortly after, Mr. Studemeyer was named as the new director, and he hit the ground running and quickly sized up the situation with the Rodman complex and found that by adjusting the placement of 4 of the new fields, we could save just under $1 million and preserve 3 of the existing fields. The old plan would have given the county a total of 4 fields. Mr. Hester and Mr. Studemeyer have found the best option for Chester County, which allows us to have 7 fields in total with less of a price than the initial project that was presented to our board. I've also sat in a planning meeting with Mr. Hester and many of the department's heads of the county, where the engineering firm was grilled and numbers adjusted to keep within a tight budget that Mr. Hester had set. There were minor adjustments made to the engineering plans, but these were brought before our board by Mr. Studemeyer in September of 2023. The board has consistently and unanimously approved the small changes to this project. We believe this plan is solid, well thought out, and while it has increased in price over the last 10 years, which I might call project creep, also maybe some inflation in there too, it has also increased in value in what Parks and Recreation can offer to all of the county residents. The vision of County Parks and Recreation for the Rodman Complex is to provide a space to bring this county together in unity, to play, relax, and enjoy the park together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, our next order of business is, well, we actually don't have a public hearing tonight or any ordinances for tonight's meeting, so next is administrator's report. So, Mr. Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I want to start out with a couple of introductions. Bear with me. Our attorney, my wife, and my secretary gave me their head cold that I came down with, so I've been taking some medicine. I'm going to try to read all this tonight, so bear with me, please. But I want you to introduce, where is he, Mr. J.P. McNeil? Will you please stand up? Mr. McNeil is our new Deputy Director of Emergency Services, County Fire. J.P. was born and raised in Chester County. He graduated from Chester High School. He is married and has 4 beautiful children. J.P. is very active in local sports leagues where I've seen him coaching at Chester, and with his kids, and he's also a youth director at his church. He holds a bachelor's degree in business management, and J.P. started his fire career in 2010 with the Chester Fire Department, where he rose through the ranks to lieutenant. J.P. has also worked for the Chester County Career Center, where he gives back and teaching emergency service programs for future firefighters and EMT. And so I want to welcome J.P. On our staff, and hope that you all get a chance to meet J.P. as well and introduce yourself to him. Thank you, J.P. Next, Ms. Stacy Hodgson. I want to introduce, I've been talking about her for weeks, but she sits on a board and she had a previous engagement. But Stacy is our new animal control supervisor. She was born in Ontario, Canada, but she has lived in Chester for the last 4 years. She has her associate's degree in law and security and spent the last 30 years working in the home improvement and logistics industries. During that portion of her career, she held numerous roles with increasing responsibilities, from associate on the sales floor to senior director of operations over an entire division. She enjoys spending time with her husband, her daughter, and their dogs for the animal control, or animal shelter people there, hiking in the mountains and riding their motorcycles. She is excited to be part of the growth of the animal shelter. We welcome you, Stacy, and your knowledge and experience in leadership and managing, and another very welcome addition to our staff. And so take time to introduce, you probably all know her already, but welcome. I just want to say next just a kind of a shout out for our team back here. You see we've got quite a bit of our directors and staff in the room tonight. They've been volunteering once a month for the past 2 months at the Fort Lawn Community Center, one Friday a month. And a couple of our council members have done the same as well and been there with us. But I want to just say it's not one of those volunteer jobs where you go and kind of stand around and move a few things. It's work, isn't it, guys? And we're unloading pallets off of trucks. And
Some are faster than others, too, I'll say that.
we did have a little competition. I won't talk about it, but to see who could pack the bags the fastest. But it's a lot of fun. And so I just urge, I know the sheriff's offices, I see the sheriff back there somewhere. They've also volunteered with that group down there, but it's nice to see our staff giving back to the community and working in the community. And it is hard labor. And then they try to get me to buy them lunch, but I will not do it. I will not do it. So, moving on. I want to just follow up our planner, our new planner, county planner, the first county planner ever starts. He starts with us on September 9th, and if you remember from my discussions in previous meetings, he is a Chester County hometown resident. Born and raised here in Chester County, went off to school at University of South Carolina and then Georgia Tech for his master's degree. Been working in the city of Toccoa, Georgia as a planner, and we've been fortunate enough to bring him back to Chester, where he'll start on September 9th. I want to say thank you to, there's quite a few people to say thank you to, but Mr. Ed Darby, our emergency management director, his staff, Laura, his deputy director, all of our directors, our elected officials, the sheriff, his staff, pretty much everyone in the county who has a role when we have a potential hurricane, tropical storm, or any type of natural disaster type of event. And just when Tropical Storm Debbie came through, I saw a level of preparedness that was, and remember, I came from a very large county, of large sheriff's office where they did a lot of, we had hurricanes come on quite frequently, and we prepared for those. But I saw a level of readiness and a level of communication and a level of preparedness in Chester County. The size of Chester, but the staff and everybody's working together. The nice thing, everyone participated, from the school district, the council members, to all of our different entities that would have been affected. And it was a really nice, it was nice to see how that emergency operations center operated, even only getting to level 2 at one point. But just a great job by Ed and his staff and everybody that was involved. And I know Ms. Mosley, you commented quite frequently on those calls, and just thank you to everything everybody did. Next on my list is sign-ups for the first ever Chester County Government Citizens Academy. Ms. Callie and Ms. Christie have been working hard to prepare. We will post sign-ups September 3rd. They will be posted on Facebook and on our website. There'll be a link for you to sign up. We're going to take the first 20 residents that sign up for that program. We're going to try to keep it at 20 for the first Citizens Academy, just to kind of get our feet wet. We're going to be doing some dry run-throughs to make sure it flows good. But this will be a great opportunity for members of our community to learn the operations of county government. So many behind-the-scenes things and things that people do on a daily basis. And don't worry, if you don't get signed up for this one, there'll be many more opportunities. Our goal is to try to run 2 of these a year, and so there'll be plenty of opportunity for you to sign up. The last thing that I want to mention, well, two things, is our Health and Wellness Fair, Cali, October 18th. Am I correct on that date? And it's going to be at the Gateway Center. It's for all Chester County employees, as well as any of your dependents that are covered under your insurance. We've got, right now, 24 vendors, 22 vendors that'll be there. There'll be some free screenings and so forth that'll be taking place, some nutritional counseling. Is that correct, Callie, as well? And so just if you're a Chester County employee or a dependent of a Chester County employee, please mark your calendars. And then the last thing on my administrator's report, Mr. Wilson, is just I wanted to notify council that I've been selected by South Carolina Association of Counties, their legislative policy development process, to be a member. Thanks to the sheriff for recommending me or nominating me for the committee to sit on our Public Safety Corrections and Judicial Steering Committee, which has to have representation from a specific number of county administrators. And so the sheriff saw fit that with my background that I'd be a good fit for that committee as they start to really hone in on standards for jails in South Carolina is really, I think, one of the big tasks over the next couple of years as well. So I've been nominated to sit on that committee and will gladly accept that role coming up in September and November of this year. With that, Mr. Wilson, that concludes my administrator's report.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so moving on, we don't have any old business, so item 9 is new business. We have the setting of the 2024 millage rates. We have Donnie Wade, our auditor, and our treasurer, Tommy Dower.
Good evening. Let me just say this before I get started. I'm proud of this council. I don't get an opportunity to say that too much, but I'm proud of every one of y'all. I'm telling you, a lot of counties, they don't get to brag on their council. I can brag on mine. I'm proud of the way y'all do business here. So I wanted to publicly let you know that. But I also have the good news, which the budget that you set allowed us to be in a position to be able to keep our millage level. And that's not just this year. For the citizens last year, we didn't raise the millage. And so if you look on your handout there, you'll see the 2023 levies and the 2024 levies. And if you notice there on that, what you'll find is that there are no increases except for what you see, the very minimal changes in the fire district ones. And those are very good as well. And so I just propose that to you to pass, and I present those to you to be passed tonight. So I guess I'll entertain that too.
All right, are there any questions?
I want to make that motion.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the, go ahead. What's your motion? Your motion is?
To go with the millage. That's right, the millage.
That's correct.
Setting the 2024 millage.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion to approve the 2024 millage as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Get that, Christie? All right.
I have one comment. You got a second?
Yes, sir.
So, would you clarify for the citizens of this county, the Richburg debt service, what that's for, and how much that is per month?
So the millage that we set for debt service, what was proposed is 6.2 mills. And so I think that's a budget of about, I don't have the number in front of me, John, but let's see, I might have it. Let's see.
It's
Hold on.
about $12,000 a month.
Yeah, so the budget was, let's see. So 125, let's see. That's not debt service, let's see. 147,624 is the total budget, so it's a little over $12,000 a month, you're right.
And what that is for is the taxpayers in the Richburg Fire Protection District area are paying for the fire service building and the main building in Richburg and the substation in Knox's Station and one fire truck. So that's $12,000 a month that comes out of the citizens of the Richburg Fire District to pay that bill, and that's a 40-year mortgage. Is that correct?
Correct, that's correct.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? I would say, really appreciate y'all's work. Y'all do a fantastic job. Y'all are a face of the county, work with the public every day, and we appreciate that from both of y'all. You know, it's such a big deal. Not only are we keeping our millage level, but we're making a lot of progress at the same time. We're solving and fixing things as we go. So that's really exciting to be able to keep it level and do some good at the same time, a lot of good. So appreciate Mr. Hester's efforts in that as well. If not, I'll call for the question. So all in favor of the 2024 millage as presented, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye. Thank
All
you.
in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have item 9B. We have the Chester Catawba Regional Airport Projects Update and Grant Match Request. We have our Airport Director, Keith Roach.
Good evening. I'd like to bring an update in actually 4 different items. First is the past. Since my tenure 8 years ago as being director of the airport, we have actually accumulated $3.7 million from the federal government in improvements. With those improvements, the federal government has included $3.3 million of that. The state has thrown in $119,000. The county has put in $103,464. That's a pretty good return on what we've done. That brings us up to where we are today. The asset value of the airport has increased in those 8 years from $3.7 million to roughly $8 million with those improvements. So that's a pretty good return. At my last appearance here, I gave y'all an update on the projects that were upcoming. The first one was being a light improvement project, which our lighting system is about 30 years old. It's well outlived its useful life. It's costing a good bit of money to maintain those old lights. We have accumulated enough credit with the federal government to receive a grant to replace those lights. At my last appearance, that's a 2-part grant. The first part of it was the total cost of that was $137,000. I requested $6,884, which was 5% match. The state also included $6,884. The state actually picked up the tab on the rest of that. That project has been completed. With that being said, part 2 is now ready to be implemented. That's the construction phase. The construction phase of this totals out to $1.4 million. I made it known that we would be asking a 5% match for that $1.4 million when it come due. Those figures now come out to the federal government. The total project is $1.436,163. The estimated, or the actual figure that the federal government's including is $1.2,092,547. That's a 90% of the total cost. The 5% match from the state comes out to $71,808. And the local is also $71,808, which is 5%. Tonight, I'm requesting that as a grant match. I've been in touch with Mr. Hester and Tommy Darby over the last year or so concerning this grant, and they assured me that the money should be allotted. It should be taken into consideration. Now, I think that's right, isn't it, Mr. Hester?
That's correct, Mr. Roach. It is budgeted in this fiscal year.
Okay. So with that being said, that's going to be the first request tonight. I have two more items that I'd like to discuss. The next project is a smaller project.
I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and, can we go ahead and deal with that one now? Okay.
You could go ahead and deal with that one. That might be easier, actually.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I move we approve $71,808 match for this person.
I'll second.
All
Is
right.
that the correct amount?
71,808.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All right, so the motion is to approve $71,808 for this grant match for the airport. Discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
I think he does a great job, so
All right, we can keep going now.
Okay, the next project we got is a smaller project, which is actually in the works now. The total cost of this project and what it entails is a little excavation work at the airport, which will greatly improve the maintenance of the approaches to the runway. It's a state-sponsored grant. The total cost of this project is $11,382. The state is furnishing 75%, and we have to furnish 25%. We have agreed to actually, as the Airport Commission has agreed, to undertake the 25% match on our own. So we will not be requesting any funding from the county. We should be able to take care of it ourselves. And that is their commitment to the airport for the improvements that we're trying to make. So that's just for information. All right, the next project. I also brought up at the last appearance that our second runway had actually come under some credit from the state to have it redone completely. This is unheard of in the federal government funding process. They do not fund second runways. Chester's fortunate enough to have two. Unsupported, that runway was established in 1943. Still original. It's very bad shape, but it's still usable. They have they offered us, Chester County, a chance to redo this runway with federal money that they have received. If we do this, it will be a state-sponsored 90%, and the local fee will be 10%. So we'll have to put the whole 10% on it. I also made it known that we do not have an estimate on that project. We do have a two-part on this. The first part is just like the previous one on the lighting. It's design and bid on the first process. That is up now and has basically, I go before the Airport Commission in Columbia, the State Aeronautics Commission tomorrow, to actually receive the offer on this. The total cost of the design bid project is $290,382. The state part of that will be $261,344, which leaves a balance of $29,038 that the county will have to match for this project. And that's just to get the estimate on the construction side. When it comes to the construction, it'll be a lot more. And I've also made it known to Mr. Hester and the treasurer that the Airport Commission will chip in as much as we can to get this grant for this runway. It's very important that the airport in a community has two runways for emergency purposes. We're very fortunate to have that runway still intact enough to still use it. If we do not do this, it's going to come a time we're going to have to condemn and shut that runway down. we'll never get it back. So with that being said, this was actually projected for next fiscal year's project. There was an airport in a county that actually failed to meet the criteria, and the state has bumped us up a year. So this was mentioned that we would be asking for this, but I don't think it's been allotted, has it, Mr. Hester?
That's correct, Mr. Roach. We were planning this for next fiscal year. However, Mr. Darby and I have conferred after discussions with Mr. Roach on the need to go ahead and do the design this year so we don't lose that spot that we were bumped up to. And we can fund that from a couple of sources. Mr. Roach has even offered to the money we allotted for some hangar improvements to use that money and put off the hangar improvements for the other hangar. We can use our capital reserve account when that comes due. But when this comes due, it'll be later in this fiscal year.
That's correct.
And we can assure you that we can cover the cost of it, even though we didn't put it in our grant match. The other thing that I just want to bring up, Mr. Roach, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have had, even though we don't have a solid number for the runway, we expect it to be in the $3 million range.
At least, that will be the bare minimum.
So we don't want to get too far ahead. We have to start here. We have time to prepare for that. But we do have the money. And Mr. Roach needs that confirmation that council will approve us to use that funding so he can move forward, I think, actually by this week.
Well, that's tomorrow. I actually go before the South Carolina Airport Commission, Aeronautics Commission in Columbia tomorrow, and they will have to know that we're good for this design bid process before they contribute their commitment to go on with the project.
All right, so I guess we're looking to see if there's a motion on the floor to approve a 10% match in the amount of $29,038.
That's correct.
Correct.
I'll make a motion, we approve the match of $29,038.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion?
I don't have an issue with it. I don't quite understand all of it.
When you say that they're going to redo it, what does that entail? Do they actually remove the current asphalt or concrete?
That's what the determination will be.
Really?
That's what this study will be for, the actual design and the estimate of what it'll cost and what actually needs to be done, whether that runway can be repaired or whether it will be actually removed and completely redone. Of course, if it's just a repair, the cost will be a little less. We're also planning on cutting down on the size of that runway just a little bit to save money. Currently, it's 150 feet wide. It has been reduced from 4,998 feet down to approximately 4,000 feet. And that all includes with the overlay and the height restrictions. We had to do that because we didn't have an overlay. So with that being said, it's going to be a little less for the repair than it will be for a complete rebuild. But if we downsize the runway to 100 feet or 75 feet, which is normal, we can cut the cost pretty much in half of what it would be if we replace it as it is.
Mr. Roach, you and I had a meeting about a week ago, I think.
Yes.
You enlightened me on a bunch of things that I did not know about Chester County Airport. Could you kind of let the citizens know the rarity of having two airports and two runways and how rare it is for a county to have an airport like Chester, and kind of enlighten them on the business that comes in there.
Well, it gives you, number one, it gives you a lot more area space for private industry, commercial industry. Gives them access to a second runway if the first runway is unusable. In case of emergency, planes always have to land into the wind as much as possible. That gives you a completely different set of rules if the wind's not favorable to land. If we had a major catastrophe in Chester and they had to fly supplies in or any kind of any kind of support whatsoever from the state, if the winds wasn't favoring, they couldn't land. With 2 runways, you got another option to land. So not only is it a safety factor for pilots and commercial and emergency vehicles, it's also an enticement for more business and more area to access public runways.
The Rock Hill Airport only has one, right?
They only have one. They are, all the airports in our vicinities at capacity. Prior to my taking over the airport had actually fell behind in where it should be by FAA standards, by state standards, and I brought this to the attention of the members before. In 2017, an economic study was done on the airport for Chester. They determined at that point, the next 5 years, which we're just coming out of those 5 years, which would have been 2023, that Chester County needed to spend $12.5 million on the airport just to get it up where it should be in 2023. We're nearing that amount now with the help of the federal government. We're almost there. So before we can improve and grow, we had to at least catch up. And all this is part of the plan to catch up. The county has a great asset in that airport. We have over 1,100 acres there that can be used for commercial industry. All the airports are full around our area. Chester's growing in leaps and bounds. And we have an opportunity. The biggest missing link is the water and the sewer. Coming into that airport, it's 2 miles away. If we can get water and sewer, that airport could grow commercially. So we've got, as Mr. Branham always says, we got a diamond in the rough. We just hadn't polished it yet, but we're working on it real hard.
Thank you.
A few months ago, well, it's been more than a few months ago, we had that airport overlay, but we had that meeting, and the aspects of how important the airport is to this county. Is this tied into that same?
We're starting to reap benefits from that process. It's already.
We maintain the airport, so we have the overlay and all of those things that tie into that, and the airport.
That's correct.
We have some aspect of in Lancaster County, so.
Right. Yeah, that overlay is a pretty much important part of the growth. If you've got that overlay in place, then it protects a lot of the industry that could come in. It just actually pronunciates the airport better as a commercial entity. It's not going to affect really too many people. We have enough land. The biggest thing we're concerned with is height restrictions, and our approaches are laid out. We have enough land that it shouldn't affect too many people individuals. A lot of people's land use is tied in with that overlay, but it's grandfathered in. Anybody that has anything there now that's may be restricted in the future is grandfathered in. So it's not going to affect anybody's personal reverence. The biggest thing is the height restrictions that the airport footprint almost covers in entirety. So that overlay, actually it's on the books, South Carolina books now. The people, the counties that have overlays for their airport get top priority on all the funding. That's got a lot to do with what we're asking here for this runway, simply because the state knows and has been involved with this overlay. I think some of y'all have met some of the state people, and they've taken into consideration that this overlay is almost done.
All right,
and that handles a lot of this grant stuff.
Okay, so we have a motion on
Have
the
any of
floor.
these council members been up to the airport, Mr. Roach? Has any of these council members been up there?
Mr. Wilson's been up there, and I think Mr. Vaughn's been up there, and I think that's it. Mr. Branham's been in and out, but it's been a while since he's been there.
We have a motion on the floor to approve this 10% match in the amount of $29,038. Is there any more discussion? None, I'll call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously.
If I could, I'd like to commend you for all the hard work you put into this and have for years. Our airport is, because of you and the hard work of the commission, is where it needs to be. And
We have the best commission up there right now that we've ever had. Got a couple of engineers there. It's really helpful. We got local residents. We got pilots. It's a good, diverse commission. and they're really concerned about the airport and the county, is for all the residents. SLED is a big user of that airport. People don't realize how much we utilize SLED. They have a key to the office. They do secondary security for us, basically. They fly their helicopters in when they're on missions, and they're up there and people don't even know it. So, you know, we get an added feature from SLED. The ambulances fly in, heart transplants, MUSC's quite often in there. It's not just a personal place for playground for pilots. It is
A lot more
used.
besides that
It's
going on.
used vigorously, but the county people don't even know what goes on. So, you know, we have military training up there that people don't know about, and I really can't talk about. It's really, really fascinating on some of the stuff that goes on up there that people just don't know. So it's a diamond in the rough, and it's got room to grow. It's got plenty of room to grow, where none of the rest of the airports in our area has that capacity. We just have to nurture it to get it where it needs to be. And that's my goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it for tonight?
Appreciate all your help.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so next we have the SEDHEC grant information from our recycling coordinator, Molly Knowlton, and also our Public Works Director, Robert Hall.
Excuse me.
Good evening, Councilman, Chairman, Mr. Hester. Thank you for having me speak tonight. If you can't tell, I'm really nervous. Oh gosh. We have some exciting things to talk about for Chester County. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I might not make it up here if I take too long. So we're going to jump right in. DHEC offers competitive grants to local governments and municipalities to help offset the many costs associated with recycling efforts. Competitive grants is a type of funding that is awarded through competitive application processes where applicants submit proposals detailing information about their organizations and projects, including any problems they want to solve, proposed solutions, the budget projected for the project, and the expected outcomes. That being said, the short answer is competitive grants are not guaranteed funds. The agencies will read through proposals and pick the ones that they like the best and that they think are attainable in a grant year. This year, Chester County Recycling and Solid Waste applied for 2 separate competitive grants with DHEC, the used oil grant and the solid waste grant. We were awarded a combined total of $16,972, and these do not require a grant match. The used oil grant is $7,672 of this total. These funds will go towards updating our current oil collections. Several sites need new secondary containment features to prevent uncontrolled spills. Each site will receive new funnels to make it easier for citizens to dispose of their used oils, along with new spill kits in the unfortunate event that we do have a spill. We were also approved to redo some of our signs, and this will make it easier to find the designated areas for each recyclable items. And that brings us to our next grant, the solid waste grant, which is $9,300 of this total. These funds go towards new programs within the county. First, we will begin accepting antifreeze at all of our 11 convenience sites. And then second, we were awarded 11 6x4 sheds, one at each of our convenience sites, to start accepting small electronic devices for recycling. Examples of electronic devices are computers, mobile phones, televisions. These sheds will also be used to store the used batteries that we currently accept. We'll have a list of all of these items on the county website. Having the opportunity to attend conferences like the SWANA, the Solid Waste Association of North America, and the Litter Control Keep America Beautiful conferences, being able to meet our DHEC personnel, vendors, and other individuals in the solid waste profession, I was able to learn a lot about the solid waste world, but specifically what these grants can offer to small counties like ours. For example, we have a new Recycle Right billboard getting put up in the next few weeks, and we were allowed to use a portion of the professional development funds to send our landfill operator, Roy, to Class 2 landfill operating training class held in Columbia last week. He has passed his class. With all of these changes, please bear in mind that it will take us some time to get things together. We have already started receiving supplies and prepping our sites, and we do hope to have the program up and running soon. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that update. Are there any questions from council?
Well, let's say all I've heard is compliments lately, so that's a nice change over the past few months. I used to not always hear that, not to disparage anybody else, but I know things have kind of picked up and people are a lot happier now on both sides. So I just want to say thank you for that too.
Thank you.
Done a good job.
Thank you.
I'm really delighted with the addition of the landfills or convenience sites accepting antifreeze and electronics. I mean,
Those
that
were
might
our
not matter
two-
to most folks, but folks who live in Great Falls are having to drive all the way up to landfill to get rid of that stuff.
Yes, sir.
And now they don't have to anymore.
Yes,
That's
sir.
great.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to take a minute and commend Ms. Molly Norton since I've been here, and we started about the same time, didn't we, Molly? And she really thinks out of the box. She came during the budget time with a lot of ideas with our recycling that we're implementing, new contracts, making us take a look at things. She understands what it means, the name convenience sites, and the importance to our environment of keeping people from throwing things on the side of the road or so forth, to make it convenient for them to where we can collect those items. And everyone knows where I stand on professional development, and she's taken that very seriously. And just by attending the conference, spending a couple $100 to go to a conference, that's where she got the ideas for these grants as well, making those connections. She came back with $16,000 in grants. So that's the importance of attending these types of conferences, meeting other people, being able to collaborate. And so thank you. I appreciate the job you do.
Thank you.
No action is needed for tonight?
No, sir, no.
All right, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the item 9D, the Purchasing Department update by Susan Coke, Director of Contracts and Procurement.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Vice Chair Wilson. I'm here to give you an update on how we do things in the Purchasing Department. There's two of us, myself and my buyer, Kara Dudley. And I'll go over the few things that Kara does first, or the many things actually. She receives the requisitions from the department directors, and she will find the best prices for everything. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's $20 or $500, she's still going to find the best price for whatever it is. Every penny counts in everything. She orders fuel cards for vehicles. She goes to the DMV to purchase tags. She'll research the best prices for vehicles and any equipment. I know she's working on some equipment for one of the other departments, and you know it is a little time consuming on that, but you know, just to research that, fine. We have different types of contracts that we look into. We use regular state contracts. We use Sourcewell, Omnia, HGA, GSAC, or HGAC, sorry about that. So there's several different types of contracts, so there's a lot of research that has to go into purchasing some of these products. So it's not just looking at one thing and just making that purchase. She collects information from vendors so that we can get them set up in the system. She works with AP in getting those set up. She works with vendors and all the department directors and staff on a daily basis. And for myself, I'll approve all the purchase orders that she does. She sends them to me, and then, of course, I turn around and I'll send them to Brian to look over, Brian Hester, to take a look at, and he'll approve ones over a certain dollar amount. I'll bid out or submit documentation for anything over $25,000. And then, of course, anything that's over $100,000 comes to council for approval after that. I work closely with all the departments on projects that need to be bid out. We work on different specs and on all the projects. I send out RFQs and RFPs. RFQs are requests for qualifications. RFPs are requests for proposals. RFQs we do a lot of for engineering firms or architectural firms to qualify them for specific projects. RFPs are proposals for specific products or projects that we're working on that we need a contractor for. I work closely with engineers, architects, contractors, and so many other vendors on all these projects we work on. Of course, the buyer and I work directly together all the time. On the next screen, this is just a sample of one of our smaller bids that we did at one point. This was a sample of a generator bid that we did. And this was for, I can read it, voter registration. This is just what I sent out to, we listed it on the county website. This was just a sample. This was the actual bid that went out. We had includes the date and the time of the bid. It included the specifications and the scope of work, and included that local vendor preference that we had passed a while back, so that if there was a local vendor, they could get that percentage if they were the low bid, or if they were not the low bid. The next one shows, we listed in SCIBO, and SCIBO is South Carolina Business Opportunities, and that is where anybody, you don't have to be in South Carolina to look at it. All these vendors, contractors, they go in and look at it. You can be in any state, anywhere, but it just gives you a broader range of being able to get the vendors, contractors to see that you have something out there available for them to bid on. So it reaches more people that way. And a lot of people use this. A lot of vendors, a lot of contractors use this. And that directs them right back to our county website, which has the actual documents that they'll need to look at. The next one is a bid tabulation that I'll do at the end of the bid. And this one on here, this is the company, the Generator Services is the company who won the bid. They were the lowest bidder at the time. The next one is just a snippet of the county website, and that's where I posted it. On the right-hand side, you'll see the project number, and that 2324, that part of the project number, that is the fiscal year. So this year it's 24-25 is our first four numbers. So those four numbers are always going to be the fiscal year that we're in. And then right below it, it shows that local vendor preference. That's the form that they would just click on, and it'll just take you to the link of the form that has that local vendor preference. And it just shows this is where it was closed and the bid was awarded at that point. Any questions or comments?
I guess not.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. It was really good
Thank
to have
you.
this report. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have the approval of bid. This is item 9E, approval of bid for project 22222-0012 Rodman Sports Complex Improvements. Brian Hester, our county administrator, is walking to the front.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chairman and the rest of council. I know you're looking at me in a little different space tonight, but I'm going to present the bids. I'm going to present items E and F tonight. And hopefully, first, I really want to thank Ms. James for her comments regarding the project tonight. There she is. As well as Mr. Baker and our Parks and Rec Advisory Committee that's here. And I hope that this presentation will clear up some of the questions and hopefully, you know, if there is any questions after that, that I will be able to answer those for you all tonight. I have quite a stack of documents here, but I prepared a statement that I'm just going to read again so I can keep my thoughts clear with regard to all the aspects. So item E on the agenda, we're asking, and tonight I'm seeking council approval to accept the low bid contract to begin construction on our long-awaited project to upgrade and improve the Rodman Sports Complex. This project, we can all agree, needs to cross the finish line. This project has been discussed, designed, and redesigned for 10 years, and actually maybe a little bit more from what I'm hearing tonight. In 2020, County Council updated the allotment of funds associated to complete the Rodman project to include $150,000 from local ATAX. Just while I'm going through this, I ask that make notes of the numbers or anything that you think you might have a question about too, and then we'll save those for the end so I can get through all the numbers, because there's some things here that I may answer your question initially towards the end. So again, allotment in 2020 included $150,000 from local ATAX, $1,153,803 from the 2020 Capital Project Sales Tax Referendum, and $2,949,198 from the Gateway Fund reallotment of what had originally been a spec building and the refinance of the Gateway Fund. The total allotment in 2020 came to $4,253,001.00. In July of 2023, 3 months after I became the county administrator, sealed bids were accepted for the project. At this time, the project plan was to demolish the 3 existing fields that sit in the Rodman Complex now, and to build a 4-plex baseball complex in its place. The low bid at that time, 1 year ago, came in at $5,094,867 for construction only. Other costs associated with the project at that time totaled $697,000 for a total of $5,791,867. This project was substantially over budget, and if you remember, I came to council and I asked for permission not to accept the bid. I then asked to go back to the drawing board and made a commitment that our team could do a better job. This council unanimously consented to that. Not to get down in the weeds, but from then to now, this dedicated group of men and women that you see sitting all around us tonight did just that. Through collaboration with league officials, members of our community, partners in the construction industry, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, which you as council members all appoint to represent the community. A new plan was conceived. The conceptual plan to move the construction of the 4-plex to the vacant spot of land on the Rodman property and to save the existing 3 fields that would originally have been demolished. This was presented to the council and to the Parks and Recreation Committee. That committee that is here tonight received those plans, and they voted in September of last year to move forward and approve the new design. Council was also kept abreast throughout the last year of this process on numerous occasions from myself through administrative reports, through open session reports, and all the while keeping you apprised of where we were in the process. So here I stand before you, stand before County Council today, 1 year later, to present the low bid on the new design, which adds 3 fields to the overall project. And I'm going to correct Mr. Baker, I'm sorry, Forrest, but but it's actually 8 fields that we have. We had 4. There was 3 over to the side. There's 1 field down at what I call the bottom end of the park, and so we're adding a 4-plex. So we're going to actually get 8 fields as opposed to 5 fields, which was in the original plan. The low bid that I am presenting to council tonight includes a base bid of a 4-plex baseball complex, new bathrooms, and I mean plenty of new bathrooms, thanks to Mike Levister, concession stand, scorekeeper's box for each field. Included in this bid, the base bid for the actual 4-plex, are 5 alternate items tonight in front of you. In those alternates, we've added scoreboards, foul poles, dugouts, irrigation, and an emergency vehicle entrance and staging area. I have pulled out alternate bid number 1 from this bid, and alternate bid number 1 was LED lighting for the fields. I will discuss the lighting and funding in agenda item F following this item and the reasons for pulling it from that bid. But again, these alternates were put in there, a little explanation on why we did these items. You're like, well, you can't have a field without dugouts. That's true. You can't have a field without scoreboards. Well, you can. You got scorekeepers. Can't have it without foul poles. Well, it depends on the type of foul poles you want. So what we wanted to do was we put these in as alternates on good, nicer foul poles, nicer dugouts. You can build a fenced dugout. You can build a split-face dugout. And so we put these as alternates so when the bid came back, we would be able to take a look at this and see, okay, for the money, with the amount of money we have, what can we afford? Okay, what can we afford to do? What makes the most sense? The low bid that I'm asking council to approve is exactly as was stated earlier. It's $3,444,720.34. All other costs associated with this project, and I'll talk about all other costs, came to a total of $868,000 for a grand total of $4,312,720.34. You may ask, what all the other costs include? Those are costs for things like architecture, engineering, construction oversight, because remember, when this project was first designed and the first contracts with this, we did not have Mr. Hayes here. In addition to the construction oversight, we have material testing allowances, there's bidding services, there's topographic surveys, wetlands delineation, and geotechnical surveys, which I consider all those what we call pass-through costs. We actually paid the topographic, the wetlands delineation, and the geotechnical, we actually paid those twice because we moved from piece of dirt A to piece of dirt B. And by DHEC standards, we had to do that. There was also some additional civil engineering costs that took place because we moved from piece of dirt A to piece of dirt B. Those additional engineering costs were to the tune of $105,000, but that includes all the drainage. The drainage over on one side of the park, to move into the drainage over here, there's drainage, there's plumbing that goes under the ground. You guys understand what I'm talking about there. So the bid that I'm requesting council to approve tonight puts the project and all other non-construction costs at $59,719 over the amount that was allocated in 2020. To cover the additional $59,719, we have Chester County Ordinance number 2021-18 that amends Chester County Ordinance number 2019-5 to allow for excess CPST funds, capital project sales tax funds, to be used for overages related to 4 projects. 2 of those projects are complete. One is nearing completion, and Rodman is the other project. We currently have over $4.8 million in excess capital project sales tax funds. These funds came as a result of rollover from the 2014 referendum, as well as interest accrued over the past 6 years. So to recap, 1 year ago, the low bid was $5,094,000 $867 with a lighting option of $525,000. That was bid last year, lighting option, which I will subtract out of the sake of fairness and comparison. That left a total 1 year ago of $4,569,867. Today, we have a bid that is equal to that bid, if not included more in it, of $3,444,720.34. We're talking construction costs only. We have saved the citizens of this county $1,125,147 and provided a product that adds 3 fields and a more robust end product as well. Now, I know one of the questions that I'm going to get is going to be, how do we save so much money? Is it a good product? Much of the savings came from simply not having to demolish the existing 3 fields. Demolition is a very costly part of any project. The other portion of that savings came from the extensive site work that was going to be needed under the original bid and the original placement of those fields, because if you all have been to Rodman and know that that section has very interesting topography with hills and going down, so there's an extensive amount of site work. And that site work almost saved us close to $800,000 and some change. As I close, I would just like to reiterate that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has voted to recommend that council approve and move forward and bring about long-awaited start of the Rodman construction and improvements. With that, I'll take any questions you have regarding the base bid and the 5 alternates. Again, the lighting questions, if we save that to agenda item F, please.
Mr. Hester, so the original construction bid in the original construction bid, that was last year, that we actually got that original construction bid, of $4.5 million.
The original construction bid, yes, sir. So let me be clear. So, and I have it here in front of me. I actually brought that original bid list out. The low bidder at that time, the low bid with the alternates at that time, which was the scoreboards and I'm sorry, I drew a blank. But same things that are within what we're considering today, minus the lighting. So it was $5,094,867. And I subtracted the lighting out of that because the lighting's not included in the bid that I'm asking you to consider.
And then it came out to around 4.5 million.
That's correct.
Now, that 4.5 million was just construction only. That was no architectural fees or anything of that nature. That was just construction bid.
That's correct.
And the construction bid now, right now today, is $3.4 million.
That is correct.
And that's not including any architectural fees or anything. That's just straight up what we're paying the contractor to do the work.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what clarity I need. All right.
I have one. Ms. James brought this up. I got up yesterday and went to the Country Omelet. $1,156,000 approved by the 1% sales tax board in June 2020. Architectural drawing, everything. $1,156,000. And now, you just mentioned 5.2. That is a significant difference, and I understand the cost of things have gone up a lot. Ms. James also just mentioned just a moment ago that she has not seen the plans. And in our conversation Friday, we had that same discussion. Another gentleman has not seen the plans about what we're getting ready to do. We're being asked to spend $5.2 million for a little baseball field for kids to play on. That is a lot of money for little boys and girls to play that don't care if the concession stand meets blah, blah, blah. All they want to do is play ball. That is a lot of money to put on the taxpayers of this county, even though it's already been done. The one, that plan I just showed you is the only plan that's been voted on by the citizens of this county. When they voted for the 1-cent sales tax, and that committee appointed by this council or the previous council came in here and sat down and they agreed that that's what they were gonna build. Now, as I understand it, there's been other things done and all this kind of stuff, and this way before I got on county council. But I really cannot vote to tax the citizens in District 1 that I vote for to pay $5.2 million for something that ought to cost, and I told you Friday, 4.1 was my maximum number. And I will vote for 4.1, but I'm not gonna vote for 1 cent over that.
So, thank you, Mr. Agee. What I'm asking for is for council to consider the low bid of $3,444,720.34. If you add the all-in other costs that are going to be incurred, which are not counting the lighting that we can talk about, that's a different agenda item for a reason, and I'll explain that. But 5.2 is not the number that I'm putting in front of you. It's $4,312,720, of which County Council has already allotted $4,253,001. Again, we're to the negative $59,000 and some change. So, and I understand, and understand that people may not remember the drawing, people may not, but this drawing has been presented to our Parks Rec Advisory Committee. Those rooms have had citizens in this room were in those meetings that approved. They've been presented at council meetings as well. And I know I can't go back and change the past, and I know that there's frustration with this project. And I promise you that what the staff and everyone involved, the Parks and Rec Committee, we all feel the frustration. And we're just trying to give a good solution to the taxpayers, to you as council, to bring this thing home. And I know there's frustrating parts of it. And our commitment is that we'll eliminate those frustrations as we go forward in the future with projects. But I can't go back in time and undo things that this staff and myself weren't a part of. But I do appreciate the concern, and some of the concerns are valid.
Mr. Hester, can I ask you one more question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hayes or somebody maybe to answer. How many acres is the Rodman baseball facility? How many acres are we actually constructing?
That's a good question. So, actually, while I've got in front of you, can we?
I'm leading up to something. That's really
Okay, I'm
why I
sorry.
need
Go
to
ahead.
know.
I can't tell you the actual acreage of the entire facility right offhand. 90.
How many? 90? Okay. The reason why I asked that question to kind of shed some light on what we're about to spend. In Lake Wiley, and I've been to that park. There's a baseball park there. Collegiate high school actually plays on that park, as well as some rec ball schools play on that park. And that park was a 32-acre undertaking. And in 2020, they spent $13.5 million on that park. And I've actually been to that park. And what we're constructing, from what I see, is better than what Lake Wiley spent $13.5 million for. So just kind of putting that in perspective as to what we're getting and what we're spending versus what some of the surrounding counties have spent on the parks. I think And one of the reasons why I'm an advocate for the Rodman Park and want to get it done, because it's in my district.
Yes, sir.
And I want this park done.
Yes, sir.
And just putting it in perspective, there have been some counties that's paid a lot more than we paid for parks of this magnitude. So just kind of putting that out there.
And again, I say two things. I know it's frustrating, this 10-year project. I do. I know that it's gone through several allotments. But I will say, the work that's been put in by everyone over the past year, saving the amount of money we saved, pretty spectacular at the end of the day. Pretty something to celebrate. The other thing I'll say is, and I know there was a question brought up about local vendors. There's no one else. I shouldn't say there's no one else. I probably am with anyone else in this room on how much I prefer to use a local vendor. You know why? Because you guys go to church with them. We go to Sunday school with them. They're accountable too, to our community and to us. We have to follow our state process. However, I will tell you that we are working with purchasing our county attorney, and we're working on a new RFQ process that allows us, and the state uses it. And so we've been trying to figure out a way to be able to select the local vendors. Now, I will tell you that every bidder on this project got a local vendor preference. How did they do that? Because they're all using local vendors. In fact, the one that I'm recommending we accept tonight, I think it's electrical, if I'm not mistaken, is using K&K, so a local company here in town. And so I know that companies like this will also reach out to some of our other local contractors once they get started, some that may have been a part of other bids as well. So we do try to make sure that we're using those local vendors and having them represent us as well in these projects.
Well, the other part of this that I have a question about is didn't the high school build a new baseball field out here? Is that right, Tommy? Did they build a new baseball field out here? I think they're in the process. So the baseball field out here in Chester is not going to be the high school baseball field. So what are we doing for the kids in Chester if we're going to spend whatever? I'm stay away from the money. There's no game plan that I see. We're going to spend all this money in Rodman and we're not spending any money here in Chester for this. It continues to be a problem with me as far as if you're going to be looking after the kids, let's look after the kids. If we're looking after the adults, then let's look after the adults. But the kids are what are important in this thing. My son played baseball from the 8th grade all the way up through 2 years in college. So I understand baseball. I understand how much it costs. And I understand how much sacrifice goes by the parents to go play that. I'm not bothered with that. There's no game plan here in all of this stuff that I see. And I think before we spend money, we ought to have a overall county plan for what we're trying to do. Because the kids that play in Rodman, they play in Chester too. A lot of them do at any rate. And so that's my biggest issue. The other issue coming back to...
So can I address that first and then you follow up so I don't lose my train of thought here?
My hearing aids went out of power, so I can't hear.
So I just want to address that particular thing. And we have been working since I got here. Mr. Studemeyer has been working, him and Adam have been working in the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, has been involved in this all the while, very diligently to create a plan for the Chester Parks. There was one roadblock that's been in the way for years, and actually since its existence, those parks. And that's the fact that Springs Industries owned those parks and they leased them to the county. So it's prohibited us from receiving grants, other type of funding for those parks. And it's also been a little bit of a detriment when you go to upgrading or spending money on something that you don't own. And so that has always been a very, very delicate issue. Well, guess what? Great news. I sent you all an email last week the end of last week, you all received that email stating that Springs Industries has agreed to donate the Chester ball fields to Chester County.
Now, let me ask you something. Didn't we just pave the road out there for the DAV? Isn't that on Springs property?
That is actually Springs building. We maintain that building, and that's the reason that we, for years, have patched and touched up that roof, is because we didn't own it. So we just did minimal maintenance to try to keep it going until we figured out what we're going to do. But now we're to a point that we can create a plan for those ball fields. That's where we've already talked to this advisory committee about that and about creating that plan and about how we can fund it with the next referendum that comes around, or another funding source that county chooses or deems appropriate to create that plan. So I'm glad you asked that, because that is an item, Mr. Agee, I'm glad you pointed out that we needed to talk about. I meant to actually mention it in my administrator's report, and I breezed over some other stuff. So,
Mr. Hester, this been a long process. I've been on council for 4 years, and I'm finna start another 4 years, and we still talking about Rodman.
Yes,
we
sir.
need to get that done so we can move on.
I think too, as far as to concur with you there, it has been such a long time, and I think right now we're at a point where I think this is the best opportunity we have to actually get it right for many, many years to come, and not just doing here and there as needed. If we can do it, I feel like it's something that would be beneficial to the county as a whole, to its citizens, to all of the kids in this county, to be able to have a lot of fields to take turn and play. For the parents, it would just be so much nicer than anything we've had. And like we've discussed, and in your back of your mind, you know, with Chester, with the with the donation that Springs is going to give us for that. Now we can start asking for grants and doing those things and doing the same type of thing we're doing right now in Rodman. We can do it in Chester. We can do it in Great Falls at some point if we're able to. We can do it in different areas of the county that need it for the youth. And I think that's a really, really good thing, and I'd hate to miss an opportunity to do so.
Ms. Mosley made a wonderful point, and I hope our representatives from Great Falls heard that. This is we talked about having a plan for the whole county. Well, this is the first step of a plan for the whole county. The commission and Mr. Studemeyer and Mr. Hester are thinking about the whole county, and this opens up a lot of possibilities for Great Falls. It's like there'll be Rodman, Dawson Field, with the addition of the county acquiring that property so that grants can be applied for. The same thing could happen in Great Falls, and money can be pumped into Great Falls just like everywhere else. So I hope everybody's listening.
That's
And
right.
then when
So if I could, maybe this would be a good time to have a motion on the floor so we don't continue to discuss without a motion.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the bid for the Rodman Sports Complex. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's restate that amount if we could. You have it, Mr. Hester has it.
Get it exactly. Hold on.
Yes, sir. So council will be approving the bid, the low bid with 5 alternates that I described, and I can go back over those if you need, for $3,444,720.34.
I'll restate that bid. I make a motion that we approve the bid, project number 22222-012, Rodman Sports Complex, for the amount of $3,444,720.34. Second.
That's the total bid for the construction bid.
No, it's on this vote.
All right, so that's a bid to approve the base bid and 5 of the 6 alternates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there more discussion?
Y'all, I think if we go on and do this, we can get our money back. Because y'all, if we got Chester, Rodman, and then include Great Falls, that's where that travel ball come in at. And when you bring travel ball into this town, you can get money. And I think this will be a great project for Chester County.
Councilman King just took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say. This is a great opportunity for Chester County. If you've had young boys and girls, we just had a softball team here that went and played in the softball World Series. But if you've had young boys and girls like I have that played travel ball, you go to all these different counties and you see all these nice facilities where these kids go and play travel ball. And if you're from Chester, you always, long for that in your own community. And it always makes me wonder every time I go somewhere and take my son or whoever to play travel ball when we were playing, always make me wonder, why can't Chester County do something like this? And I am proud that we just approved that bid so that we can have something that we're really proud of, and then something also too that we can bring more people into Chester County. Especially being in Rodman, they're going to be in the Richburg area buying food, buying gas, spending money in the Richburg area. So that it will definitely help the economy in the Richburg area, but then it will help Chester County too to have something else that that we're proud of. And this is just the start of something big. And I'm so happy that Springs decided to donate that field, because that's always been a question of mine too. What are we going to do about Dawson Drive? So this is just the start of some great things to come.
I want to say that, when you hit the pause button back in July of 2023, we had the bids and went back to the drawing board, made some improvements, and now we have a lower bid than that. So it's saving us money, and I think it's a lot better plan. So when you had time to really put your touch on it, and so that's a good thing. I'm glad you did that. Sometimes it's hard to stop a project, to say, hey, we need to refigure on this, and that's what we did. I think that's a good move. So it all worked out.
Yeah, and also a big thank you to Britt, to Adam, to the entire board there too for coming together with this and coming up with some great ideas and working together as a team and making it work for everybody here in the county. Thank you.
When you take a vote, I'll tell you something else.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor for, to approve the low bid in the amount of $3,444,720.34. Is there any more discussion? Not, I'll call for the question. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor.
So, Mr. Chairman, before we move to F, do you mind if I just show a couple of slides so the people in the audience as well as council members can see? Yes, sir.
Can I ask you to do one thing?
Yes, sir, please.
You're going to show some slides.
Yes, sir.
Have a meeting somewhere, I don't care where it is. Make sure Ms. James, make sure that everybody in the community is there, so they see all the plans, they see everything, and you and Brett and whoever else you want to, so nobody can come say they didn't have an opportunity to see everything.
I think that's a great
Because
idea.
that's one of our problems, is we don't explain everything in good,
I think it's a great idea. And we can do that out at the Gateway for the Rodman community specifically. It'd be a great time there, because there is some things in the drawings which we want to explain because they're not set in stone. We can change, we can move some things around. It's not going to cost us a dime extra. We're paying per square foot or we're paying per linear foot, whatever the case is. So if we put it here or we put it here, it doesn't matter. So that's a very good idea, and we'll make sure that we do that, Mr. Agee. So if you don't mind, will you guys click a couple of slides? And I think you've seen I know it's kind of hard to see, it's in black and white, but that just shows there's 2 additional parking areas that'll go up towards the fields. We have an auxiliary parking area that we will be able to pave in the future if we decide it'll be gravel. But if you look at the fourplex up there, the big things to kind of consider is, and there was some recommendations, and I have to give Ms. James credit. She made a recommendation when, I want to say it was back in September, to move some batting cages because they blocked the entrance for emergency vehicles. And we actually moved those batting cages because it was in the way of where the emergency vehicles. So that pad up there is for emergency vehicles only. But that's just a little bit of drawing. So we've got dugouts, we've got bullpens for for our pitchers to warm up in. And those will all be, that's an older drawing. We're going to move those around and tweak them a little bit. But again, those are things that the community can definitely have input. If you go to the next slide, please. That's just a drawing of what the concession stand, scoring area, and bathrooms will look like. It'll be a split face halfway up. It'll be a hardy plank siding the rest of the way up, and then a hardy plank siding on the top. It'll have a metal roof. And again, colors, those are things that we want in our community to an extent. We don't want pink roofs and so forth. But we want it to, people to have input on. Next slide, please. And so there, please take note. The women's restroom on the top end of that picture has 13 stalls in it. So 13 stalls. You can thank Mike Levester. I had a fit over that, and I didn't get my way. I was like, 13? The men are stuck down to 4 urinals and 3 stalls. And then you can see to the right side is all concession area with prep tables and back space for all the different fryers and different things, a hood. Then there's a storage closet for concession, I assume where all the refrigerators and freezers are, and then another electrical storage. And then you see the stairs going up top. Next slide, please. And there's just an elevated picture of kind of what it'll look like. If you notice, the top is catty-cornered. I think that's the right way to say it. But to where it faces, each one of those windows will face a field where a scorekeeper can sit in the air conditioning. They'll have the ability to open those windows as well. And then next slide, and I think that's it, actually. Is that all? Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, so next up is the, let's see, that's item 9F, the recommendation for approval of funding for Rodman Sports Complex.
Yes, sir. So I told you we were going to talk about lighting and a couple of other things. So I just discussed the ordinance regarding excess CPSD funds, and I also informed you all that we currently have $4.8 million in excess funds, and that amount keeps growing every day. With that said, I'm asking council to authorize me to use a portion of those funds to pay for LED lighting for Rodman Complex at a cost of $555,000. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Give me just 1 second. In addition, we did not include sod for the fields. We, in that base price, have seeding, overseeding, and planting. However, because of what I'm going to, and I'll get to that in a minute, and then I also want to add $200,000 in contingency funds to the project that would only be used if needed. And that's just if we decided to, okay, let's say we go to that community meeting and somebody says, hey, did you guys think about a sound system? What about built-in speakers? What about running Cat 5 wire for this or for that? Things that we may not have thought of. Then we can use that $200,000. We don't have to come to council. So why did I pull that lighting alternate from the bid? Because it came in at $738,507. We have the ability, and that's again one of the reasons we put them as alternates in the bid, so we weren't bound to it. But we have the ability to contract directly with Musco Lighting or Premier Sports Lighting. There's 2 vendors that gave us quotes. We chose Musco because all the other lighting in county parks is under Musco Lighting. And that's to the tune of $555,000. It creates a savings of $183,507 on lighting from the original bid. With part of that savings, I'm asking for the $120,000 to put sod down instead of seeding. Putting sod down with the irrigation that was built into the alternates that we have ensures that we get our youth playing on the fields as quickly as possible, and we can ensure that grass takes hold much sooner. So with all these items total, contingency, lighting, and sod, I'm asking council to allow me to use $938,507, and again, the contingency will only be used if needed. From an informational standpoint, I want to update you on the soccer fields and upgrades. We currently have approximately $200,000 left in funding for the soccer improvements. Field nutrient work has recently been done to improve the field surfaces. Plans are in place for netting to the lower fields and for sidewalks and lower field access once the season is over. And what I would call Rodman Phase 2 improvements, once the current fourplex is complete and the restrooms and concession are operational, the plan is to upgrade and renovate the existing fields and dugouts. We will design sidewalks to make access to those existing fields become ADA compliant. We also want to renovate the current concession and bathrooms to make it and connect the sidewalks to the soccer fields, which will also make it ADA compliant. Lastly, as part of this phase, we would bring to fruition the all-inclusive playground that's been discussed for years, along with walking trails around the facility. All of the items in Phase 2, which will not be until after the completion of the initial project that we are discussing tonight, will come back before council for approval of funding based on Ordinance 2021-18 that only allows for that funding for 4 projects that's left over. In conclusion, I'm asking council to approve that $938,507 for the sod, for the lighting, and a contingency on an as-only-if-needed basis out of that Ordinance 2021-18 CPST funds that we currently carry a $4.8 million excess balance in.
Mr. Hester, can you clarify for the council, for the citizens' knowledge, what the CPST funds are, so that they will actually understand what those funds are and how they're used and how we got an excess?
So there were 53 projects that were on the capital project sales tax referendum in 2020. Chester County had a referendum previous to that in 2014. All the funds were not expended in the 2014. There's a 6-year phase to expend those funds. For whatever reason, all the funds were not expended. Whether projects didn't get started or completed, there was a leftover amount of funds. Mr. Darby could probably give the exact number, but I'm going to say it's in the upper threes, roughly, that was 4.3 that was left at that time. So those are funds that are just sitting there. Council voted in that in 2021 in ordinance number 18 to allow. Now, in addition to that, we've accrued interest as well in those accounts.
We've made money off the money.
Yes, that's correct. We've made money off the money. And not to get in the weeds with it, but pretty soon that referendum will be paid for. And so at that point, it becomes extra money as well that's in that. In 2021, with ordinance 2021-18, council approved the use of those excess funds on 4 projects, okay? Council has to pass an ordinance to approve the use of those funds. It was approved for North Chester Fire Station, which is complete, the county radio project, which is complete, as well as Lewis Fire Station, which we've already got an encumbrance out of that account to finish out of the capital project sales tax to finish Lewis Fire Station of, I think, $340,000, which it'll be complete. And I didn't want to get too much in the weeds, but I'll give you a little idea that even after doing what we are talking about doing tonight, we'll still be at over roughly $3.9 million sitting in those excess funds. And again, Rodman improvements, and that's the way it's worded in the ordinance, Rodman improvements. So that's any part of Rodman improvements those funds can be used for. We don't want to let those, the worst thing that happens is they roll over into the next referendum, but I think it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we expend the funds from the previous capital project sales tax that are there and have been allocated by council to be spent on those projects.
Well, there are 2 other things that I want to be very clear on, and we can have a whole bunch of little extra money. The animal shelter, I don't know what it's going to be, but that's got to be done. End of discussion. We got to build an animal shelter. And the other thing that I've said since I've been on this county council is the jail. The jail is despicable in this county. And I'm not in favor of letting people out of jail, but I'm in favor of making sure we have a place where employees can work that's not a mess, And God help us, the inmates don't need to live in that kind of environment either. So those are two things that's gonna cost this council a lot of money. That new jail is gonna be astronomical, but it's got to come from that aspect, and we gotta take care of the animals. And I'll say this right quick and shut up. I had a kitty cat showed up under my feet down in Richburg the other day, and they had to come get that kitty cat because I didn't have the heart to do anything except give it some water. And I really appreciate that. So we gotta be real mindful. Extra money is not, that's not true. We got a jail and we got an animal shelter we gotta build.
That's correct, Mr. Agian. At next council meeting in September, the first one in September, I'll present a plan to council regarding the county jail. And it's the sheriff, his staff, we've been working diligently on a plan for the last year and a half. And we have a good start, and I'll present that in the next meeting. When it comes to the animal shelter, later on tonight, we'll be discussing the contract regarding the animal shelter, but I can assure you, as I have, we have the funding to pay for the animal shelter as well. So,
If I could, I'd like to point out also that the 2020 capital projects, it's common in 2014 and in 2020, we had some initial cost estimates that were lower than what we discovered that it would really cost. So there are projects out there, and one of them's near and dear to my heart is the Welcome Center in Great Falls. There's possibilities we might come up short on them. And this overlapping of funds that we have might provide the money that we need to complete those projects properly, not to come up short on anything.
That's correct, Mr. Vaughn. And one of the things, let me point out, is the capital project sales tax, the excess, statutorily, the only thing that money can be spent on is capital project sales tax referendums. Right now, the excess, the only thing that I'm allowed to ask you to spend it on is what's in 2021-18. However, council can amend 2021-18 to include another one of the projects that was on that referendum in 2020 for overage of funds that'll be left in excess. But that's the one limitation of all those funds to council, is it has to be projects that are on that 2020 list that are needed extra funds. And there's some other parameters around that they can't have an auxiliary funding source, or I shouldn't say they can't have one, but there's some parameters that Mr. Darby and I have to consider. But what you're referring to, you and I have had those discussions, and that would be an amendment of an ordinance in 3 readings when that time comes, once we know some solid numbers.
Let me just say this too. I know we've talked a lot about money, and obviously that's what we're here for, but let me just say this. I think it's absolutely fabulous that we can do all these things. We've been able to do so much in 2 years, year and a half's time, from budget year last year to this year, with no tax increase to our citizens at all for 2 years in a row, and we're able to continue to still make these good choices. So I want to make that known and recognized, and also by you, Mr. Hester, as well, Mr. Darby, Mr. Wade, all of our department heads who put in the effort and the work, and truly, I believe, enjoy their jobs. So thank you all very much.
I do enjoy my job, thank you.
All right, so we have, this is, I guess there's opportunity here for a motion on the floor. I'll go ahead and put it in a motion myself. So to use CPST funds in the amount of $938,507 for sod, lighting, and contingency in regards to the Rodman Sports Complex.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, I call for question. All in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 All in favor. All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 9G, we have the first reading of CCMA 24-11. Timothy McWaters, request a portion of .566 acres, tax map number 154-00-00-007-000 located at 3580 Catawba River Road, Fort Lawn, South Carolina, 29714, to be rezoned from agricultural district to rural 2 district. The planning commission voted 5-0 to approve. Is there a motion to be made on this?
I'll make a motion, we approve the first reading of CCMA 2411.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor? All right, so we don't have any boards and commission appointments tonight, so next is executive session. Those items are A, receipt of legal advice regarding a real estate matter, Duke Energy. B is discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements, animal shelter. And C is discussion of negotiations based on proposed contractual arrangements of the Great Falls Fire MOU, Town of Great Falls. So is there a motion for executive session?
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.